My name is Wayne, and I am a Bible scholar, and Adam and Eve didn't exist. This is the consensus in biblical studies, textual criticism. There was no Adam and Eve. Now, a lot of people can go into the scientific aspect of why Adam and Eve didn't exist scientifically, but I'm not a scientist, and science is not my strong point. Now, I'm going to explain how I, as a Christian, can accept that Adam and Eve didn't exist and still can believe in Jesus and still can hold to my Christian faith. And so one of the first things that need to be absolutely broken is that Moses did not write the Genesis account. There is no text in the biblical account that says that Moses wrote Genesis. Genesis doesn't say that Moses wrote Genesis. That is an assumption that you cannot find anywhere in the text. The assumption that Moses wrote Genesis or that Moses wrote anything in the Hebrew Bible comes from tradition, but you will not find that in the text at all. Also, the consensus in textual criticism and biblical studies is that Moses did not exist. Now, for argument's sake, I'm going to grant that Moses existed, but the reason why I'm bringing this all up is because Moses did not write the Genesis account. And the reason why this is important is because most people, when they think about the book of Genesis, they think that Moses is writing about Genesis from a vision. They think that God gave Moses a vision while he went into a trance and he wrote on a page as he's like looking like Stevie Wonder. And that is how most people conceive how the Genesis account was written down. And the Genesis account actually was written way cooler than that. The way how the text came to be, way more interesting. So the book of Genesis was written in the Babylonian exile circa 550 BCE. Now we know when Genesis was written, and by the way, if you know when Genesis was written, you'll know why Genesis was written. I think I went into Genesis 1 on this account. I got another TikTok account where I talk about this stuff, but I think I went into Genesis 1 and how Genesis 1 is a microcosm of the Jewish temple. Yes, I said that right, microcosm, because the Genesis story didn't actually happen. And so Genesis chapter 2 is the story about Israel. Genesis chapter 1 is a exaggerated retelling about the Jewish temple, and Genesis is using the story in 1 Kings. Well, Genesis chapter 2, it is telescoping in on that story in Genesis chapter 1, and it is telling the story about Israel. Adam is a priest and a king, just like Israel is a nation of priests and kings. Adam is a son of God, just like the nation of Israel is a son of God. Hosea 11:1, out of Egypt I have called my son, talking about the nation of Israel. Adam is made from the dust of the ground, just like the nation of Israel is made from the dust that's in the wilderness. And to top it off, when Eve is made from Adam's side, Adam says, "You are bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh." That is taken from the book of 1 Samuel chapter 5, when the 12 tribes of Israel go to King David, and the 12 tribes of Israel say to King David, "King David, we are your flesh and bone." Because the story of Adam and Eve was written hundreds of years after the story of Israel was already written down and being lived out during the Babylonian captivity. Now, this is going to be very hard for people to get because people have an attachment to this story. And if you're watching this and if you're upset, the only reason you're upset is because you have an attachment to these characters in the story. And psychology is called a parasocial relationship, where people have a one-way relationship with people in a story or a movie, or even a relationship with an actor, right? People have a parasocial relationship. They have a one-way relationship with movie stars. People feel like they know these movie stars, they know these actors, they know the characters in these stories because they have a parasocial relationship with them. And so the only way you can accept this evidence is if you just have a very strong attachment to this story. And I get it, because we all got told this story from the time we were very, very, very young. But the other way to look at this story is that, yeah, God could have told the Israelites how the world was actually made. He could have told the Israelites about stellar nucleosynthesis and Big Bang cosmology and Big Bang cosmogony. But God is so amazing and God is so good that God allowed these ancient people to write their story in a way that they could understand for them. The book of the Bible and the story in Genesis, it is not written directly to anybody today. This is their story. This is the story of the Israelites, and they are writing their history using their own cultural idioms and metaphors that is rich with intertextuality. And it has nothing to do with how the physical world was made today. And it's not answering any of our questions that we have for each other. The story of Genesis chapters 1 and chapters 2 is not about how the world came to be. And we need to be okay with that. We need to be okay with understanding that the Bible came together exactly the way it was supposed to come together, and God knew exactly what he was doing when he was using these ancient Israelite people, and the story of Genesis came out exactly the way God knew it would come out. And this is a story that is not about us. It is about Israel. It is about how Israel came to be as a nation, and God used exactly who he wanted to use, and we need to be okay with that. If we say we believe in God, if we say God can do whatever he wants to do, we can't be mad when God does exactly that. When God uses people in the ancient Near East to communicate their story to each other their way, and their story is not about us, and it's not about anything that we're concerned about when it comes to science, we can't be mad about that. So no, the Adam and Eve story didn't happen. My name is Wayne. I'm a Bible scholar. I'm a Christian. And Adam and Eve not existing, that shouldn't have any bearing on whether or not Jesus rose from the dead. It should have no bearing on whether or not Christ incarnated himself as a man, walked the earth, had a ministry for 3 years, died, resurrected, and did away with the old covenant. Now, if you want to know more about this, go to the link in my bio and get my books. I talk about this stuff in way more detail with academic sources from other scholars and academics in the field, with primary and secondary sources. If you want to know more, go to the link in my bio and get my books, Secrets of the Bible from the East, because the Bible is an Eastern book. And we have to understand the Bible from the culture it was written in. You might not see me again, so follow me. So no, the story of Adam and Eve is not a literal story about how the world actually came to be, and that is okay. Because whether or not Adam and Eve existed, Jesus is still king.